The ayes have it. The question is that social development stand part of the schedules.
Mr. Chairman.
The Honourable Paula Bennett.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to take a call on the estimates for vote social development. There's no doubt about it that this is a big year for social development. If you look across what we're doing as far as the progression in the work in this portfolio, you can't go further than, I think, three main areas of work and probably counting from there. But the main areas would certainly be in welfare reform, of which you've already seen number one of welfare reform 1 go through. It would certainly be around white paper and the changes within child, youth and family and the developments there, and also investing in services for outcomes, which is the changes in how we are contracting with NGOs in particular, but also I think wider than that in the work that we're doing in communities. Added to that, of course, Mr. Chairman, is the work that we are doing with youth, which has been a huge focus for us, and along with the associates in this portfolio have made a substantial difference. I know that Minister Burrows, with his associate hat on, would take the opportunity to talk a lot about youth offending and actually the progress that we have seen there in the changes to not just the sentencing, I think, but more of that preventative work that's being done both in community organisations with the police as well, and that investment that we made years ago is certainly paying off, but I will leave that to him. Mr. Chairman, I thought it was opportune because we've certainly had questions around it today, and today we released the submissions summary of the white paper, of the green paper, and the submissions that were made to that and the writing of the white paper. So it's an opportune time to sort of look at where we're at and what we're doing when it comes to child, youth and family and the notifications there. So on average at the moment we're getting around 150 to 155,000 notifications, of which around 55,000 are deemed to need follow-up, and from there we have about 22,000 substantiated cases of abuse or neglect. Actually, when you look at the figures, the areas of physical abuse and sexual abuse are actually not increasing. They have been fairly stable, if you like, over a long period of time in this country. Where you see a huge increase is in emotional abuse and how that is categorised. So in one respect you can sort of say it's horrific that any levels of abuse are going up, but I think if you looked at it from a different angle you would say at least we're identifying it now as what it is, and in many cases at least taking it a bit more seriously, I think, and that was under Labor, quite frankly, so I'm not standing here to say that that's been particularly changes there. But what we have seen is most certainly an increase in then how we do it. Differential response within child, youth and family is making a big difference, and you see that in the estimates as to where we put that kind of funding. That is where we have community organisations dealing with the lower levels of abuse and neglect for these children, and that makes a difference. So they are at times able to get into people's homes differently than, quite frankly, social workers or police can. They can work with them in a different way and at times get different results than perhaps that social worker who is seen as being statutory. That doesn't mean that they are not, of course, though, as social workers stepping in and doing, unfortunately, far too much of their share of this work. Hence why we've put 96 more social workers in, 16 supervisors, 80 more, 57 now have been appointed, which I'm absolutely thrilled about. They are in positions and training up and getting to know. What we also need to do is look carefully at whom child, youth and family are working with. I know the opposition have expressed interest in this, and I think it really is an area that we are constantly looking at. Is there any filtering done by police, for example, who make up something like, from memory, 76% of the notifications that are coming through? At the moment, if there is a child in the house, they don't even need to witness violence or anything else, they pass that notification directly on to child, youth and family. Now we need to actually have that discussion and that debate as to whether or not there should be a little more filtering done at the police end as to whether or not, because at the end of the day you have social workers then spreading themselves themselves across the board and perhaps working on cases that they don't need to. And as a consequence, you get a number of false positives. Certainly what you see coming out of submissions is the debate around targeting. So you have universal services which cross across health, education and of course social development, but you equally then need to look at who are you targeting. So if there's anything in that work that you're doing within Child, Youth and Family to prevent some of these children from being abused and neglected, is looking at who they are, where they are, and then working out and making sure we've got the absolute right service delivery from the right professionals around them. Mr Chairman, this is a substantial portfolio, which leads to sort of saying it's got a substantial minister, I suppose, if he had a sense of humour. So what it needs, though, is that concerted vision and approach to it from all directions. It's a massive piece of work.
The Honourable Jacinda Ardern.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the Minister outlining for us some of the reasons behind the dramatic increase in